So you may have heard producers be referred to as a lead producer, an executive producer, a co-producer, a managing member, a limited partner. Today I want to break down for you what the different labels for producers really mean in practice, how we use them on Broadway. I'm also going to offer for you today an analogy to help clarify the difference between a general manager and an executive producer. So stick around to the end for that. All right, so first of all, let's talk about your producer. This is the CEO of the entity. We talked about that in another video. Another term we might call the producer is the general partner, or the managing member, or even just the producer. So those are some of the terms that we might use interchangeably to describe the lead producer. Next, let's talk about the co-producer. What exactly is a co-producer? We hear this term a lot. A co-producer is somebody who helps raise money or brings money to the table. They are not a managing member of the entity. If they invest in the entity itself, they are a limited partner in the entity. Sometimes they're referred to as a bundler. So this is a money-raising producer. They raise money in exchange for above the title billing next to a producer. Depending on how much money they raise, they might have access to opening night tickets, house seats. If they raise a lot of money, they might be invited to some advertising meetings. But essentially, they are a limited partner in the entity. I'll also just write bundler down here too. So again, your producer is the one who is responsible for securing rights to the project, for fundraising for the project, and for running the show. Your co-producer is limited both in scope and in liability. They are there to bring funds to the table in exchange for certain perks. One of those perks could be entitlements. We talked about entitlements on another video. What is a 1-for-1, a 1-for-2? I have a whole other video about that. I'll link to that in the description below. Next, let's talk about your executive producer. So your executive producer is essentially a producer for hire. They might not have any obligation to raise money. They're really there to help the producer and be an extra voice in the room. What we find on Broadway these days is a lot of people are coming to producing as a second career, or they were previously co-producers and they want to graduate to being a lead producer. An executive producer is someone who can really help guide this person through the entire process of producing a Broadway show. Broadway musicals cost upwards of $20 million these days. It's nice to have extra help, an executive coach, so to speak, maybe even a life coach. Your executive producer is essentially a coach to the producer. They can also be there to help open some doors that the producer themselves can't open, whether it's to theater owners or vendors or regional theaters. Your executive producer is really there to be an extra resource when putting on these massive shows. Oftentimes people will ask me, why would you have a general manager and an executive producer? And here's an analogy I like to use. It's a little imperfect, but a few years ago, my wife and I welcomed our first 2 kids into the world. And we had both an OB-GYN and a doula. And I think that's a good framework for looking at the difference between a general manager and an executive producer. When we were seeing the OB-GYN, the OB, who was wonderful, would come in, read us the latest blood results, do a quick scan. We had about a 10 or 15-minute appointment with the OB every few months during each pregnancy. My wife's OB was absolutely fantastic, but there wasn't a lot of hand-holding or coaching through the pregnancy process. So we brought on a doula, and this doula we spoke with and met with and texted with on a daily basis. And the doula really helped us explain a lot about the process of giving birth, the different options for giving birth. The doula really served as a coach for my wife and myself while we were going through this daunting, crazy new experience that we had never experienced before. I often like to think of your general manager as your OB-GYN and your executive producer as your doula. Your general manager is going to be great for giving you budgets, negotiating contracts, walking you through the high-level logistics of producing a Broadway show. Now, we try to provide a lot of hands-on, close personal interactions with our producing clients, but your executive producer can just go so much further because they're not spending the time doing the budgets or negotiating contracts. They have a lot more bandwidth to really guide your hand through the producing process to help you organize your fundraising, to help open some of those doors that we talked about earlier. So there you have it. That's your main differences between your producer, your co-producer, and your executive producer. I'd love to know, what can I answer for you? What can I demystify for you about the producing process, producing on Broadway, off Broadway, producing in New York City? Let me know in the comments below. I want to be creating videos that respond to the questions that you have. Thank you so much. Have a great day.